Today is February 9th, 2004, and I am conducting an oral history interview with Edward Leach, born on
July 27th, 1925,
currently living
in North Arlington, New Jersey.
My name is Lawrence Green from the local history department of the Morristown and Morris Township Public Library. Would you please state which wars and branch of service you served in, your rank, and where you served?
Well, I was in the Second World War in the Navy. I was second-class electrician. I served aboard a submarine, and I was recalled for a Korean War too, active duty.
We'd like to start off with some background information. Could you tell me about your life before your time in service? Have you been here your entire life?
So I was born and raised in Jersey City, and I didn't come to North Arlington until after the war, 1947. So I lived in Jersey City during the Depression. Well, we're lucky. My father had a job; he was working, but we going from week to week on a paycheck. Sometimes my brother would ride out on the bike to the factory to get the paycheck from my father and bring it home so we'd have money to buy food that night. So I had a brother and one sister. There was an older brother and a younger sister. And we went to Braden High School in Jersey City. My sister, when we moved to North Arlington, she finished high school out here. And, both passed away. Now I'm the only survivor of my family. And I had a good childhood, had a happy time. We didn't know we were poor, because everybody's in the same boat. So, and I remember living in a cold water flat. It was always on the top floor, because that was the lowest rent. Had to go down to the basement to get coal and put this coal stove. Only heat we had was in the kitchen, so we spent the whole winter in the kitchen mostly. We had they call it a pile in the front. We had an oil heater in there. We only used that on special occasions. Usually we spent all winter in the kitchen, and that was it.
Oh.
And I guess nowadays they would call them the deprived.
Deprived?
Yeah, I was going to say depraved, but that's not right.
No, I think you have it right with deprived.
Yeah, deprived, but we didn't realize it. Didn't know it.
What kind of work did your father do?
He worked out at the Western Electric. He was on he was in the shop, then he was in the office, and he spent all his life there. And he retired. 2 years after he retired, he had a heart attack. So he didn't enjoy his retirement. I talk too much.
It keeps stopping. I don't know. It's working now. So did you play any?
Well, you was playing at the same time?
We now have 2 tape recorders working.
Okay.
Just for a backup. And we're talking about your high school career and
high
your
school.
siblings. Did you play sports or did you?
In high school I was on the track team, but I had quit school to join the Navy when I was 17. While I was in high school, I was on the track team, but I had quit high school to join the Navy when I hit 17. And after the war, I went back to high school to get my diploma. And then I also went to Stevens Tech. I applied for a full-time student, but I was advised I should go take the night school for an associate, because I'd be in competition with kids right out of high school. And I was out of high school around 3.5 years. So to be in the class with the kids right out of high school as far as math goes, and they marked on the curve, so I wouldn't be able to match it. So I went for an associate's degree.
What year was that? Did you
I was in 48.
when you enlisted?
I enlisted in 40. Well, I was 17 in July of 42,
July 42.
and I enlisted then, but I didn't get called until January of 43.
Did you have to wait till you were 18? Or?
Well, no, I was 17. They had to wait for a group to get together. So,
and what motivated you to enlist?
well, because of the war, I mean, I was full of vinegar, you know. Man, I was anxious to get into the war. So, because at the time, I mean, what's on everybody's mind at the time was the bombing of Pearl Harbor and everything going on in Europe. And of course, as soon as the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, a lot of the kids who were old enough, they signed up. So I was anxious to get in. And I had wanted to fly. I was trying to get into the Air Force. But I couldn't get into the Air Force until you were 18. The Navy would take you at 17. So I figured maybe get into the Navy, get the Navy Air Arm. But it didn't pan out that way. I wound up in submarines instead.
Big difference. So, did you choose to be the electrician or?
Well, no, I had taken the test out in boot camp. They give everybody's test to see what they're best suited for. And I said I'd be good either as a radio operator or electrician. So I figured I'd rather be an electrician. I'll have a job after the war.
Always thinking ahead.
Some training, so then they sent me to school. Went down to Purdue University, where they had a Navy training course there. And then from there, I volunteered for submarine duty. Then I went up to New London submarine school. And went through the submarine school, and they had a choice of new construction or going out in relief crew. And the chief told me, well, you get into action a lot quicker if you went out as a relief crew. You went to new construction, you go up to a shipyard, be up there for maybe a year. So I wound up telling my class he got new construction, and I met him out in Midway. And at the same time that I got a boat, he came out.
So it really didn't make a difference.
Didn't make a difference. The only thing was I had a nice trip cross country by train, and we left San Francisco on a tender, sail out to Hawaii, and then went to Pearl Harbor, then to Midway. And that's where I got aboard a submarine out there.
Do you suppose that it was just as quick for him because the level of production of submarines was so great? The industry was pushing out submarines.
Well, it's that they had a shortage of submarine crews. They didn't have enough because it's all volunteer. Mm-hmm. And of course, there's very strict requirements. Maybe 1 out of 4 or 1 out of 3 would make the grade be able to go to submarine school.
What are some of the?
You have to be able to withstand pressure. We had to go through it. The escape tank was a 100-foot tank of water, and you have to go up from the bottom with the Munson lung on. And they go in the decompression chamber. A lot of fellows, they couldn't stand the pressure because their ears or something wrong. And there's one fellow, he called a lantern jaw. His teeth didn't meet, so he couldn't hold on to the mouthpiece. He had used the lung. So he was knocked down for that. And he had to be in tough physical condition. I was at the time. I mean, I was a young athlete, top shape, and hearing was good, eyesight was good, and that was it. And had to take a psychiatric test too. What do you call it? Which had to be able to be enclosed in a small compartment. Because submarine is very confining, and with people, you have to be able to get along with all kinds of people. So they were in the same boat as we were, I'd say. But you had one man who was there who you couldn't take the closeness or other people being so close. They'd wash them out. So you had to have a, but I said you had to be half crazy to be here.
So how big was the class in your submarine?
Well, the fleet type, in subshore they used submarines from World War One, O boats, S boats, and R boats. The fleet type was a much bigger boat. It was a 300-foot long, much more room. I think that was the idea. They had us go to shore on these small boats, which maybe 100-foot long, and very close. We got on a big one, oh, we'd be like a castle. So.
Yeah.
And that's the one I caught on. It was what they call a fleet type boat, and a longer range. Like we go on patrol beyond there, anywhere from 30 to 90 days. It all depends on the fleet type was a record. Yeah, the boat I was on was the USS Sterling, SS-392. It was a fleet type was built up in Portsmouth, and I caught it on its way out to the Pacific. They had 5 patrols on it. Well, I was saying each patrol would be anywhere from 30 to 90 days. We would go out, we would stay out until we used up all our torpedoes, or we ran out of food, or we had to make sure we had enough fuel to get back home again. So that controlled there's some boats went out, they hit a lot of targets right away. We were back within 30, 40 days. You didn't see anything, be out there for 90 days, unless you were on an extended special orders or something. But I'd say 60 to 90 days. And then after the patrol, the whole crew went up to R&R for 2 weeks. At Pearl Harbor, we went to the Royal Hawaiian Hotel. We only hit Pearl Harbor once. All the other times, we went back to Midway. The only companions we had out there were the Goonie Birds. So, and that was about
a few
it.
Marines. So, on your patrols, were they? There were more targets in the beginning of the war, and was it more sparse towards the end of the war? Was it less Japanese shipping? Were there fewer targets in 1945 as there were in 1943?
Yes, it was. In the beginning there, we were on station, we were off the coast of Japan all the time, all around north, south, all around it. And any target we found up, we would attack because we no American ships. We knew that. But after a while, when we started to advance on the islands, we get more American ships out there, so we had to be careful.
Absolutely.
And anything we sank. And we had the order to go. At first, we was hitting everything, but we had orders to go after the freighters and tankers, avoid the warships. We had to hit when to get into the target. Well, we would. We were trying to avoid the warships and go for the freighters, which we sank. I think 14 ships. Among them was one destroyer, one troop ship, and a sub chaser, and then rest were all freighters, tankers, which was our goal.
Which was a lot of tonnage of ammunition and fuel for the.
And as I said, as the war went on, we had fewer targets, and all their convoys, they didn't have big convoys like we had going across the Atlantic. They were small, maybe 3 or 4 ships. And it would stick close to the coast of China, which we had to go into shallow water after them. Or else we'd wait outside their harbors, beside Nagasaki or Tokyo. We spent a lot of time outside of Tokyo Bay, and up the northern part of Japan, up the Sea of Okhotsk. And it was cold up there. And we had to be careful because there were Russian ships up there. And they had a USSR painted on the side, so we had to get close so we could see it. And up in the cold water up there, it was very foggy all the time. So we had to stay on the surface and go in close.
Makes you vulnerable too.
Yes, because we were, at one time, when we had a target, it looked like a tanker. It was low in the water as if it was carrying a heavy load. So we fired 3 fish at it, 3 fish right onto the ship. And the cabins fell apart. There were 4 deck guns they had on there. What it was what we called a Q ship. It was disguised as a freighter, but it was an armed ship. So it had to shoot at us. And so we turned tail. We were in shallow water. We couldn't dive. It was only maybe 150 feet.
What do you need to dive? How much?
Well, it get deep. We need, the boat can go down to 600. But we get down to 300, 400, we could. At 100 feet, it's nothing. And, so we hightailed it, and they were behind us all the time and shooting at us. And it took around 4 hours. Then they took it, to bring all the 4 guns to bear on us, they had to turn. As they turned, we came round on them. And then we got to deep water, we dove. But it was a long 4 hours. And, well, that was only one time. There was another time when we sank a sub chaser. And it went down fast, and we went over. We didn't realize it had depth charges on it. It was set for a certain depth, so when it went down to that depth, when the depth charges went off, and we were right over them. So they lifted us right out of the water on 2 feet.
Oh.
Scared the hell out of us. Didn't expect it. So skipper figured he'll never do that again.
Was there any damage to the ship?
No, it was just we had light bulbs, I mean, the shock of it, but no damage. And, there's one time one depth charge, they damaged the mechanism for the valve planes. We had to operate them, rig them in and out by hand. We couldn't do it by power, by hydraulic. So we had to operate like that.
What are the bow planes?
Valve planes were, they have powered stern planes which help you dive and control the up and down of the submarine. The valve planes are things that come out like wings on a bow, and they tilt like that. One time we caught a hospital ship. It was dark at night, it was a storm, and we had to get close. We had the target on radar. We got close to it, and we saw the green lights. They have a green light from bow to stern, and have red light, red cross on each end. We spotted that, and we couldn't go for it. But he was zigzagging, which as a hospital ship's supposed to be on a steady course. And so we let it go.
You could assume that maybe it wasn't a hospital ship.
Good. Well, the following night, the submarine in the next section from us, like we all had a lot of submarines out on station. We had our own area to patrol. We never went into the other area because they would hit us, pick us up. Well, this other area, they picked that up on radar, but they couldn't see it. Even got close, they couldn't see it with the lights on. So we fired fish at it and sunk it. They found out it was a hospital ship.
Yeah.
But they found debris in the water where it was something more than a hospital ship. So there's a question there about that. They were used that as a decoy. So the skipper was put up on charges, but was found not guilty. And there's nothing done to him. And a couple of times we got bombed by planes. The planes were our worst enemy because we couldn't see them. And they usually flew in by twos. Now, if we were at a periscope depth of 60 feet, we usually around 100 feet and come up, then look around with the periscope. Well, this one time we came up with the periscope, and you also looked up, you saw a big red meatball. So we dove, and right then we had 2 bombs come on top of us. Now, of course, a plane, if a boat is at 100 feet or maybe 150, 200, on a clear day, you can see the outline of the submarine. There's clear water out there, and where the bottom is.
I never would have thought that, yeah.
And because they could fly over, it may look like a whale, but you could see it would be a difference. And it was a surface ship like a destroyer. We could hear that on the sonar, we could see it. But planes we could never pick up unless we were on the surface. We were only on the surface at night to charge the batteries. That's when you get some fresh air.
So you have no you have no defense against a plane?
No defense against aircraft. I mean, we had aircraft radar, but we have to have the antenna up.
And under.
And we'd be submerged and have the antenna up. We go up like the periscope. And what wouldn't go up, but you just have that above water to take your scan around. And had no contact. We surfaced. The planes fly so fast. By the time you get up, the plane overhead. So, as I said, that was our worst enemy was aircraft. And as far as targets, as the war went on, we got less and less targets, because they didn't have the ships, all south. So then we had to be careful of our own ships. A few times we've been chased by our own destroyers. And we had 2 of our subs were sunk by our own planes one time. Somebody goofed up on the code word. And, we called the zoomies, the flyers. We're too trigger happy sometimes. And then we were doing lifeguard duty for all the air raids on Japan. When the task force went in there, well, every time we went on the lifeguard duty, we would precede the fleet. It's any picket boats, even small junks, small fishing boats, they would have a radio transmitter. If they sighted anything, they could call back to Tokyo. So we had to clear them off for the fleet to come in. And then we stay off the coast for any returning flyers if they got hit. And we picked up 8 flyers that were shot down when they had a crash. We had to pick them up. And we were also on guard on the lifeguard duty when they dropped the atom bomb on Hiroshima and also on Nagasaki. And both those targets were the secondary targets. Their primary targets were fogged in, they couldn't hit them, so they went to Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And we were on the return leg for the plane that hit Nagasaki. No, he was supposed to go to this other town. We were on that area. So on his return, we weren't in place for him if he went down, which was a last minute decision on the pilot's part. So, but they all made it back okay.
Indeed.
And I was glad. If somebody asked me, did they think we ever should have dropped the atom bomb? I think we should have. I think the one interview I had, so if they didn't drop that atom bomb, maybe you wouldn't be here. Maybe I wouldn't be here. A lot of people around there wouldn't be here.
Right.
You never think about that. Because we were all set to invade in September. We had troops out there already, had the fleet, the invasion force all set. They brought the poor guys from Europe, just went through a war in Europe, they were shipped out to the Pacific to start another war. Now there would have been a lot of casualties. And knowing the way the Japanese fought in Okinawa, they wouldn't give up an inch of ground. You know, in Japan, I mean, everybody would be fighting us, even children. So it would have wound up like a genocide. We'd have to kill them all because they wouldn't give up. So by right, really saved a lot of lives by dropping the A-bomb. As a matter of fact, there were more people killed from the firebombing than from the A-bomb itself. So I have I don't care for people who say we shouldn't drop the A-bomb, because they don't know what they're talking about. There's another thing too, a lot of people nowadays, they don't realize the frame of mind everybody was in back then in the 40s. It was an all-out war. And we could have lost that just as easily as we wanted. Just that they goofed up more than we did. And they were working on the A-bombs. They had the bomb. Even the Germans, they had it. They had dropped it first. I mean, you'd be speaking either German or Japanese right now, if you were able to talk. And so then we won the war, but we lost the peace. We had to go back to war again in Korea. I happened to be in the reserve at the time. That's why I was called back. Because they put a lot of submarines back in active duty. Because after World War II, they put a lot of ships in mothballs. So when they started the Korean War, they had no idea how long that was going to be. So they called everybody back, especially men for submarine crews. And I spent 3 years then for the Korean War. But I spent all my time in the Atlantic, not the Pacific, which was nice for a change. And,
What was your typical cruise during the Korean War?
oh, well, we were doing what they call defensive patrols. We were out there looking for Russian subs, which they had them off our coast.
Did you run into that?
No, we didn't run into any of them. Because that was when the Cold War started.
What would have been your tactic if you had run into a?
Just to follow.
Just to follow.
Yeah, and keep track of them, where they went, where they were. Like our boat, I mean, the boat I was on during the war was on the west coast, and they had a picket boat that put new bow on. It was all sonar. They would just trace the Russian subs, west coast. On the east coast we had it too. But we were just on, what we were doing, just out patrolling, as they call it, hunter-killer. We wouldn't kill them, I mean, we just find out where they were and follow them. And that would last maybe around 30, 40 days.
Were there many contacts at all? Only.
Oh yeah, they made found contacts. You know, what would want to be the boss had the extra sonar. Now they would find something, then we would get the report. Then we have to patrol a certain area, see if they came into our area, just to know where they were all the time. So we had submarines off our coast, Russian subs, for years, all during the Cold War. So, but then after a while they had all the nuki, they called the nuclear submarines, called them nukies, or nukes, and they took over. And they were going up. We had our fleet types go up into off the coast of Russia too, up in Archangel, and we were doing the same thing that they were doing. This time we had the snorkel, which we didn't have during World War II. The Germans had it. That's where they could stay submerged and run the diesel engine. They have a tube go up. They have the intake and the exhaust. So you can run the diesel engines, you can go quicker. You can charge the batteries at the same time. Because before that, we'd have to surface at night to charge the batteries and dive at sunrise and surface at sunset. And what's still going on?
Pardon?
It's still going on.
Yeah.
The Cold War, it says Cold War's ended. It's not.
What did the electrician do on the ship?
Well, I stood watch on the controls. I'd be in the maneuvering room, not the controls, the speed of the boat. Like they had, on the surface we run on diesel engines. And we would control the speed, like a maneuvering room. And submerged, we switched the batteries. We control that. And all we did was, like the engineer, more speed, we speed up the engine. And then for a while I was standing watching the control room, which was much more enjoyable, because you knew what was going on. You were right on the spot when things were happening. Back in the maneuvering room, you didn't know what was going on except they announced over the 1MC. Then changing light bulbs usually, because it's bulb changes. And just maintain the boat, all the electrical power, the main motors, ICE equipment. And during the war we had 3 watches, 4 on, 8 off. And each a hot bunk. We didn't have enough bunks for all the crew. So there'd be a man on watch, a man sleeping, the man working. There'd be 3 men on one bunk, just rotating. And you get used to the smell of the other guys too. I'm glad I was in the submarine service.
Um, is after the war, one of the German general staff was asked a question about what he thought the reasons were the Japanese lost, and he said that one of the primary reasons is the submarine service, it is secret service.
Right. In other words, Japanese didn't use the submarines wisely. Now we had a lot of convoys going down to Australia, and a lot of distance between L.A. on the west coast of Australia, and they had big convoys. The Japanese didn't use their submarines to attack the convoys. They were using them to supply their outposts, like at Wake Island. We always bypassed Wake Island. Every time a ship would go by, just lob a few shells, and they were running out of food and supplies. The Japs used to send a submarine in. You go in, but then they were being hit. So what they did after a while, they would put food and supplies in a wooden torpedo. Like a wooden box, shaped like a torpedo. They fired out the torpedo tubes, so go up onto the beach. That's how they got the supplies in there, to Wake Island. Because they couldn't stay on the surface because we'd pick them up.
That's not going to keep your...
No, well, that's why they said stories. They had some prisoners from when they first invaded Wake Island, and they became cannibals. They used to eat them. They've done that a lot on the islands out Pacific. There, of course, we had all their islands isolated. They couldn't get any supplies. They couldn't get supplies back to Japan, like all the oil from Southeast Asia. They couldn't get the fuel back to Japan, to fuel the factories, fuel the ships. And during the Battle of the Philippine Sea, so we invaded the Philippines, they just had enough fuel to send their big battleship, the Yamamoto, down to the Philippines. They planned on having that beached and use that as a gun platform, because they didn't have enough fuel to get back to Japan. So that was it, though. I forget if that was sunk or what, but there's a lot of the ships went back to Japan from the Philippines. Now we had a string of submarines from Japan down to the Philippines. If any ships come down, we would pick them up. We're supposed to let them go, just report their progress. And then the aircraft would take care of them.
Even with that, the submarines have been credited with sinking 55%.
Right. 55% of all their shipping.
Yeah.
And, the submarine were only 5% of the naval force. Well, it's right after Pearl Harbor. The only fighting ships we had were the submarines. But when they hit Pearl Harbor, they never hit the submarine base. And around that were the fuel dumps too, they never hit that. Which was foolish on their part. They just went after the capital ships.
Right.
And after that, I mean, we had a fleet down, what you call the Asiatic fleet, down in the Philippines. No, they were all wiped out. All we had down there were cruisers and destroyers, and they were all sunk. But nobody hears about that, because they were completely wiped out. So we had nothing out there except the submarines. In fact, it was a week after Pearl Harbor, the American submarine sank the first Japanese ship. I forget which one it was, but then the Nimitz said, unrestricted warfare. So anything we saw, we sank. We used to take guns on the smaller craft, but that was getting too risky. We were getting too many people shot because they would shoot back naturally. So I said, no more of that. It's not worth it. So. That's all, Virgin? Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Well, yeah, the torpedoes. There was always.
Oh yeah.
There was.
About the hard torpedoes.
Right.
During the war.
Mm-hmm. They were never very good torpedoes.
Because a lot of subs went out. They fired all their torpedoes. They hit the ship, they know, but didn't go off. They're either duds or going too deep. It was all the fault of the upper echelon back in Newport, where the torpedo school was, and all the high brass. No, the torpedoes are fine, nothing wrong with it. But the shippers knew better. As a matter of fact, they had one of the captains from the torpedo research come out, and he set all the controls on the torpedo, because the way they do that, while the torpedo's in the tube, they have fingers that go into the torpedo. You can set the depth, the range, and everything on it. And he said it, and the chief torpedoman says, "Sorry, Captain, you have everything 90 degrees out of whack." Which was this way, he had it going that way. So he himself didn't know how to set it. So what the torpedoman used to do, they had a primer in there. I mean, well, the controller, it was set a certain way. They would set it different. Like they said, you set it at 8 feet. They would set it at 4 feet.
Kind of like Kentucky windage.
Yeah, because we go deeper than they thought it would. And same thing with the firing pin on it. Found out that if you hit head on, it wouldn't go upwards, it would bend the firing pin. If you hit at a glance like that, would hit off, would fire the warhead. They found out by chance, but once they corrected that, all the torpedoes were good. But in the early part of the war, say the first, I think 43, 42, first couple of years, torpedoes were no good.
It makes you wonder.
Now, all these guys were going on the subs. This was before I got out there. They're risking their lives going in.
Right.
They were in depth charts for nothing. They didn't do anything. But it was all the, that's what we goofed up during the war. That's what I say. I mean, they could have gone the other way. Now, the Japanese had the best torpedo. They were better than the Germans even. The Germans were good. The Japanese torpedo, I forget what they called them, the Lance, I think. But they could go further, they go quicker, carry a heavier warhead, charging them. So if they had used their subs like we used ours, I think we would have lost the war. Which we would have lost to Australia. Which all the convoys going down, we would never have made it. So that's why I say it could have gone either way. And same thing with the Germans. A lot of people don't realize that. Because at that time, I mean, as I said before, the mindset of everybody was, we're in the war, to fight to the finish. And it was, I mean, all the rule book went out the window. And hear about, you heard stories, submarines, machine gunning troops in the water. Well, we did, but only Army troops. We hit a troop ship. There's occasions they get into a lifeboat, they'd be having guns with them. We go in to pick them up, they start firing at us. So wound up, we machine gun them. But we were always close to the shore, to the coast. If they got rescued, they go back. In fact, they could shoot some Americans in, right? So you shoot them out there. They won't shoot any Americans. Now, as far as the other crew members, like on the freighters, all the crew members of all the freighters and tankers were all people from India, Indonesia, Chinese, all their conquered people. They were the crew. They were forced to crew. Maybe the 1 or 2 officers be Japanese. We would pick them up, but they never would surrender. We could tell that too, because the other crew, they'd be help. We'd take them on board. The Japanese officers, they didn't want to be taken aboard. So we'd shoot them. And no qualms about it. Because at that time, I mean, even Halsey said, kill more Japs. At that time, I mean, I had a hatred for them. More so for them than for the Nazis. No, they were just as bad. But it's a different, like now we have conventions, submarine crews. We invite the German U-boat sailors. Because there's some over here, living over here now. And we have a sub-vet post down in South Jersey. It's down around Trenton area, I guess. We have some members there, German U-boat sailors. So we get together, talk, talk to talk, comparing notes and everything. And we're the same. That's why we have a comradeship, in submarine sales. But Japanese, we wouldn't.
Never felt the same.
We had one skipper, a Japanese skipper, well, he was a pilot. Now, he almost sank one of our boats. And what happened, he was knocked down by, we had lifeguards for us. Like, when we were on the surface doing lifeguard duty, we always had a Navy plane surrounding us, so our planes wouldn't bomb us. And it was giving us air cover, too. Because there's one Japanese flying boat spotted our sub. He was coming in for a run on it. And he went to release the bomb, and the trigger didn't release. He went right over the submarine, didn't drop the bomb, but then he was shot down. And somehow they found out who he was, so he was invited to one of our conventions, which I didn't care for. Because I still don't trust the Japanese. Because I read a piece of the paper some time ago, where some reporter was interviewing some Japanese high school children. And they asked them, if you ever go to war again, who do you think you'll be going to war with? They all said the United States. But just as we helped them recover, everything like that. So, and it was even the Japanese gave away our secret to the Russians about our propellers on our submarines. Our nukes, they were so quiet, they couldn't hear us. It's because of the way they made the propeller. Well, Toshiba somehow got the plans for it. They sold us to the Russians. So they got their submarines as quiet as ours. And they're supposed to be our allies. That's why I don't trust them. Never will. Any other question or anything?
Yeah, well,
I just like to talk about it, I don't want to be redundant, that's all.
no, this is not being redundant at all. How about, were you awarded any medals or citations?
No special award, just, you got to saw for every engagement. Well, you did get a ribbon for Asiatic service, the Atlantic service. No, just a normal. When we got the submarine combat pin, if you had a successful war patrol, you got a submarine combat pin. And for each successful patrol after that, you got a star on it. So that was something like the combat infantry pin, with the rifle on it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be in combat for 30 days.
Or length of...
Yeah, whatever like that. Then we had to have a successful war patrol. Some boats went out, didn't sink anything, so that was not a successful war patrol. But they might have been bombed and everything. Gone through the same thing. So they went through hell too, but they didn't get a star for them. So.
And you go back to the torpedoes. Could have been the quality. It just makes me wonder if the war could have been cut even shorter.
It probably would have. I mean, if we had good torpedoes, we would have sank more of their ships earlier.
Yep, that's right.
And cut their supply. That was the main thing, cutting their supply lines. He was like an octopus now. All the
right.
When the legs go out, they cut off their legs, and the head dies, the body dies.
Yeah.
So that's where.
How did you stay in touch with your family? What did your...
Oh, just mail.
Mail?
Yeah, I mean, we come in off patrol, we have a good stack of mail. I'd have to put it in order to read it.
Chronological order?
Yeah. The way it came, it was stamped, posted. But we get the mail, but we wouldn't get it until we came into port. And as far as we missed all the USO shows. They come in midway, they had just left.
The week before, yeah.
Or we had just left, and they came in.
Yeah.
So.
Did your brother and sister, were they?
And my brother had been in the Army. He was in the National Guard in the 30s. And his time was up, and he got out in 1940. And he was a sergeant. And when the war started, he went to re-enlist again. They wouldn't take him. He was a sergeant, fully trained, right?
Mm-hmm.
They said he had a heart murmur.
So he was alright to serve for the 6 years before that.
So they wouldn't accept him. He tried the Navy, they wouldn't take him. The Army tried the Merchant Marine, they wouldn't take him because of the heart murmur. But he just died maybe 2 years ago. I mean, it didn't bother him about that. I mean, it was foolish.
He said, well,
He's a fully trained man. Like he was, when he's a National Guard, they were nationalized in 1939. So I think, well, he started the draft, I think, in 1939.
40.
The draft?
Right.
Oh, I thought it was started in the...
It was after the election. Yeah, it was 1940 they started the draft again in the summer of 40.
Yeah, that's too far back. Because I was in grade school then. But they were going down, all the draft teams were going down to, Camp Dix for training. He was one of the trainers, and he went to DI, what they call DI now, drill sergeant. So, but at his time was up, so he got out.
Was there a big age difference between the two of you? If he was already...
What?
Was there a big age difference between the two of you?
Yeah, 5 years.
5 years.
Like you could go, I think he was in high school when he joined the National Guard. I don't know what their age limit was. I know he's been going to a training each summer every 2 weeks, maneuvers, but then they activate. I mean, they nationalized, they closed the National Guard. I think they had to do that when they started the draft. That's why I said maybe 39. But a lot of guys said we can be drafted to join the Navy. There's a friend of his buddy, he was a sergeant too. He signed up for the Navy. He didn't want to go back in the Army. He wanted a bunch of submarines. I met him up in the submarine school. Here's a guy, he was in the Army, a sergeant. He knew, but he didn't want to go back to the Army. He went to the Navy. They wound up on submarines. I guess that was all volunteer too. So, as I said before, when I just put a cell recording on, can't tell, huh?
I can't tell.
Oh yeah, we'll find out. Any more questions?
Well, how about your sister? What did she do?
Oh well, she was in school at the time.
No, she was still in high school?
Yeah, she was in grade school. She went to, let's see, she was 9 years younger than I was. So when I was 17, she was
8.
Yeah, no. But she was still in high school when we came out here in 47. So during the war, she was still a student. And after that, she got to high school. She was working out at the Western Electric. That was in the 50s. Because I think she graduated from high school in, let's see, 78. In 53, I think. 53, I think she graduated high school. And then she went to work. So she wasn't involved with the wartime or anything. The funny thing is, when I played hooky that one day when I enlisted in the Navy, I went down to join the Marines. And at that time I was 125 pounds, soaking wet, same size I am. And they go walking and he said, "Sorry son, but we had our quota filled for this month. We don't need any more now." So I accepted that. And I went walking, I met some classmates going in to sign up in the Navy. Come on, they want you to join us, we'll go together. So I turned around, went in, I signed up for the Navy. And after I realized, I mean, Marines, they don't have a quota during the war. They take anybody, if you can walk in, you're going. But if they the size of me, I mean, I couldn't even carry them one, you know.
Look what Artie Murphy did.
Yeah. And but that was the Army.
Yeah.
So I said, oh well, all the better. But because my folks figured I wouldn't be able to get in, you know. But when I came up with the papers for them to sign, they were flabbergasted.
Were they supportive?
Well, at first, yeah, they were. I mean, they were half and half. But I was so, but I was doing bad at school on purpose. You know,
Yeah.
wasn't doing my best. So I mean, I'm going to wind up. I mean, might as well go in now. I can get in the Navy right away, get drafted, maybe wind up in the Army. I tried that by college. I said, okay. But as I said, the mindset of some people, man, I mean, they were anxious to go. But if you realize, I mean, in all the wars, once in actual combat, they're all teenagers. I mean, 18, 19, 20. Aboard the ship, officer, the chief, the oldest man would be maybe 26, 27. Officers were 25, 24, right out of college, unless they came from the Annapolis, and of course they've been a few more years, maybe 30. Like our skipper, he was an old man, he was 35 when he took command, and that was old for a submarine skipper. But he had gone to the academy, he spent his time, then he resigned from the Navy, went into the Merchant Marine. He was the captain of some freighter. When the war started, he signed back to the Navy again. So, he was a good man.
What was his name?
Hughes,
Hughes?
Captain Hughes was the commander. He only died maybe around 4 years ago. We used to meet out, we always had a convention every year, get together. I missed the last couple, last three, I guess. Because my wife was sick and I was sick. So.
Are you going to make this year?
I have one in Columbus in September.
Oh.
I have my van out here, now I can travel.
Yeah.
I got that for Christmas. I can really, I can start and stop it from in here. Hit the button, the door opens, and the fan comes out. I drive on with my power chair, switch over to the driver's seat, and take off. Now I can, before with my power chair there, I can only go up along Ridge Road. It's right behind the couch there. And drive up and down, go to the store. Now I can leave town. Like yesterday, I went up to Wayne to see my grandson play hockey.
In where?
In Wayne.
Wayne? High school hockey?
Well, there's a new ice rink out there. It's out near the Hamburg Turnpike and Valley Road. Well, near the area. They just built last September. There's 2 rinks in there, 2 ice rinks. And they used to have to come down to Hackensack to play. Because they go to Primus High School. He's on the hockey team. And they had to come down to Hackensack to play. There's very few ice rinks around. And sometimes they have to play 6 o'clock in the morning, on a Sunday morning, shape up. Even up at this new rink up here, they're so busy.
People are dedicated.
Yeah, because there are a lot of hockey teams, and they have to have the open skating too. So I'm trying to hope they get one in town here.
Make it easy.
Yeah. That's what the way these kids skate, they start when they're toddlers, like in Little League, real timers. You see them playing ice hockey, especially the goalie. He falls down, he can't get up. Has all those pads on. So, it's just so I can see my grandkids now. And as I said, having a van, I don't have to depend on my kids. I want to go someplace, I have to wait till they come down to pick me up. I'll go when I want.
You regained your independence. It's nice.
Now, I want to take some long trips too, but they said, take a long trip but have a companion.
Yeah.
I'm advertising for one. One around 35 years old, knows how to drive. That's be a female, no male.
Okay.
That's first point. Have some fun at the seniors meetings up here. I always tell them, who wants a free vacation, all expense paid, to California and back, or down to Florida and back? All you have to do is know how to drive and share a room. Oh, everything was fine until you said share a room. But have more fun, man. Any other questions? Yeah,
Yeah,
I start talking. I go off on a tangent.
That's okay. Um, how big is the crew? Was the crew?
We had around 77 men, usually 7 horses and 70 men, maybe more or less a couple. Oh,
And did you train together, or did you just meet up as a group? Was everybody trained separately?
Oh, we all went to sub school. Now, sometimes you would be paired off at sub school. If you went to new construction, maybe a bunch went up, then they have some experienced men on the boat. And went to what's called the relief crew. They sent out to Midway. Boat comes in, they have to transfer a certain number of men. They change the crews, they train more men, and have the trainmen have some time off. Because after a few patrols, you had to get relieved. Usually after 5 patrols, you would go on the beach for a while. And each time they come in, they would exchange maybe 5 or 6 men. Not too many, but just to get them trained. And maybe you would meet somebody you met in submarine school. You met somebody in the relief crew. They all go on different boats, and you meet later on. So you're always running into each other. So there's always, any boat that was left, there's always somebody you knew.
It's a small little community, right? You're all volunteers.
Yeah,
You're all
very close. And as a matter of fact, on that boat, when there were 4 men from my boat, they transferred off. They wanted off. They didn't like the skipper. The first skipper he was a nudnik. And so they wanted to transfer, and they got transferred to the Shark. And the Shark went out and got sunk. So you know, Papa went on this other boat. They went out and they got lost. They never came back. So that's how things work out. And there was one guy, there was a story about it. He was on several boats. Every time he got off this one boat, it was lost. And 3 boats lost like that. So his friend said, look, anytime you get transferred, I'm going to transfer with you, you know?
absolutely.
But that's a story. How true it was, I don't know, but it's possible. Because you would know. One time we were on our way out, on our way back off patrol, we passed by this boat on its way out for patrol. We used to exchange movies. We had movies we would show on board. We'd meet up, we'd exchange the movies. Oh, real good movies. Boston Blackie. You know, all these great B movies, you know. And that was the key. Well, she went out and she never came back. That's where you, and we had known guys on that boat too. Back in R&R, we'd be in the same hotel in Midway, they called Gooниeville. Just a pair of barracks where we didn't have to live on the boat, and we had all our time off. And we'd meet people there, have beer parties. It was funny at Midway there, beer was rationed. The men stationed on Midway, you were allowed 3 beer chits a day. You have 3 beers a day. Have a little tick like what you call a beer chit. So you were allowed 3 chits a day. We come in off patrol. You're going to give us this 3 chits for 2 weeks. Our skipper was, look, my men been out there for 60 days. I want a 3 chits for each day. If I don't get it, I'm going to the Admiral. We got it. So we had all these beer chits. We had the ball.
So I could have made a racket too. I'll sell you my beer.
Sure. Oh, I mean, that had been done. The guys who didn't drink beer, they could sell to the guys who was on the pace. Because they had the 3 beers each day. Well, they had it made on them. I mean, not really made, because being stationed on Midway, it's just a pile of sand. Nothing there but the goonie birds. Had a story going around. You sit on the beach, watch the goonie birds. You start to talk to them. And when they start to talk back to you, that's when you get transferred.
Yeah.
So, and when they landed, if you were in the way, they'd fly right into you. When they take off, they run a long distance and flap their wings to get off. If there was a fence or a bush in the way, they run right into it.
Not the brightest birds.
No, not the brightest birds. You're landing, you come down. They couldn't land like normal birds. They tumble like that.
How big are they?
Oh, the wingspan could be from that wall to that wall or something. I mean, they say from here to the wall. They're like albatross, is what you are. They're fully grown, they're that big. Because they go out to sea, they stay, they just they glide around. They can land in the water. Sometimes we'd be trying to tie up at the dock. They'd be in the water in front of us. They wouldn't move. You have to nudge them up. Somebody had to get in a rowboat and shoo them away. Because they were we couldn't do anything to them. They were protected species. I don't know why. I go on a tangent again.
So, what were the relations like with everybody on ship during them? Was there ever any tension? Did you get along?
Well, there's always some tension. I mean, not as much, but after a while, I mean, there was nothing real violent or anything like that. But see, sometimes you wouldn't see in the whole patrol. Like, I should watch back in the maneuvering room, and I slept back in the after torpedo room. For a trip, I'd take a walk up to the forward torpedo room. I hadn't seen it for a few weeks. There was one time you would meet at mess hall, there'd be somebody on watch, somebody asleep. So some fellows you didn't see at all, for a whole patrol. It's possible. But you go walking up before two people and say, "What are you doing up here? You get lost?" "Yeah, I took the wrong turn." Because there's only one way to go.
One way to get, right.
And only one deck, so.
I guess if there was 3 shifts, the cook must have been
Oh yeah, we had.
very busy.
Oh yeah. It was
Jeez.
very busy. They had it, and what you would do? Well, they had meals at different times. I mean, like they always. One thing they had what you call an open ice box. You could go down and help yourself to any food you want. If I would make a bologna sandwich, I'd go down to the refrigerator, take out some bologna or whatever, make my own sandwich. I always had the coffee pot full. And every time we had any gun action or went to paddle stations, the cook would make up hot sandwiches. And when the lookouts came down, they had some hot coffee. That's only at night. And we were on the surface, where the surface gun action. And they always had food there if you were hungry. But we went to paddle station, maybe everybody was up then. And I don't know how long you'd be on battle station, because they used to track a target. Like, you track it for maybe 2 hours to find out how he's going to zigzag. We go ahead of him, just lay in wait, hope he makes the right turn. Sometimes they turn that way. Turn this way, we got him. It was a hit and miss affair, more or less. So they had to be in the right place at the right time.
So you would study the pattern of
Right.
the ship,
In
and then
other words,
hopefully he would continue that pattern,
Right.
and then you strike.
Right. See, like we had a zigzag course. We put a disc on our gyro compass, and it would turn and move the finger around, and Helen will have to follow that. So maybe zig in this way, but maybe 2 minutes, they come back this way, then this way. The Japanese did the same thing. Now we had a plot, what you call a plot. It'd be like where we were. Maybe taking readings of the target, the angle on the bow, the distance, and we marked out on things, see a tracer on the thing, how they were going. And sometimes it would start to repeat again. But they probably had the same thing we did. So you have that disc as it goes around. We had to change it every hour. A different configuration. And we would trace the target that way and see where they were heading. Would it be going this way, we're going this way, but be going this way, then go back this way again. That was the main target, you know. So we figured what that gotta be. Then we pull away we were submerged. Get on the surface, we make much more speed on the surface. And we get ahead of them. Hoping we guessed right. Then you come over the horizon, then we'd be waiting. So that would take some time, hours. Sometimes they were real close, we just had to shoot fast.
Right.
Just a matter of luck.
Was there ever a time when you had your choosing of what to shoot, whether you could shoot at? So there was a combo where you could just a little turkey shoot of your own.
As I said before, the main targets were the freighters, the transports. If a destroyer got in the way, we'll have to knock him out. But we try to avoid that to get at the
But if you had
transports.
3 or 4 different freighters or transports?
Oh yeah, well you would take the nearest one, the closest one.
Would you ever have time to do 2, 3, or would they?
Oh yeah, I mean, one, then you fire 3 fish at this one, then go fire 3 fish at that one, or whatever. And we did it, and we'll fire as many torpedoes as you could on as many targets. But they never had big, large convoys like we did.
Right.
Like we have 100 ships, they may be a handful. And they maybe have 2 escorts. It all depends where the escorts were. I said they used to keep close to the coast of China all the time. Whereas they went out to the open sea, they'd be wide open. And somebody else, they used to mine some areas. We had to go through a minefield. And, that's another story. During the later part of the war, they came out with a mine detector for submarine. In other words, they'd be able to detect a mine underwater. So this first boat they came out with, them, half the crew on the transfer, they wanted to stay on it. We went to transfer. Half of them took the transfer because they knew that they would have to go through a minefield and try this thing out. And they all asked, well, where's the guy who invented this? Why doesn't he come along? You know? They like to sit back there and say, oh, this is going to work. Theoretically, you have no problem. But they had to go through a minefield on purpose. And I guess the thing worked, but had no casualties from it. But one time we didn't have it, but we were near a minefield. We almost went through it by mistake. Because somebody had turned off a gyro compass, a repeater. Somebody who shouldn't have done it turned the switch. And you didn't have the gyro, we weren't on gyro for maybe around 15 minutes. The gyro had stopped. So I mean, the repeater gyro up in the helmsman, up in the conning tower, that thing wasn't changing. You stayed on a straight course. We were headed for a minefield. And he found it just, the skipper had on, the navigator had to go up on the bridge. This was at night. You know, but and shoot the stars to find our location and reset the gyro. Done over again. That was one of those no-nos. Which accidents that happen, you know. When a boat gets lost, they don't know why. But they compare, after the war, they would check with the Japanese records where they thought they would sink a submarine. And we were sank 4 times, as far as the Japanese were concerned. But we hit a convoy, we said it, and they would have charges. But they would tell the people, oh, we just sank a submarine.
Yeah.
So we sunk 4 times with Japan.
Well, fortunately.
Yeah. You find these things out after the war. And the best time was when they dropped the atom bomb. I mean, they came, well, we had a newspaper on board. Yeoman used to make up a little sheet of what went on, where we are and all that. And he came back and said, we just dropped the napalm had the force of 20,000 pounds of TNT or whatever, you know. We didn't realize, you know, what it was. But we weren't very far from it. We had no reaction, you know, no effects of anything. He just knew it was a big bomb and ended the war. That's all I was read about.
And the mood on ship that day?
Yeah.
The mood on ship that day, on board?
Oh, yeah.
Very.
He said, split the main price, which is take a shot of whiskey. We had medical supplies of whiskey. Every week we got a shot of whiskey. That was it. Only one.
So, and that day, how did your service end? Do you recall?
Oh, we came back after the war. We came back into Pearl. Then we went down to San Diego. Then I went home on leave, 30 days. Then meanwhile, I was on leave. They made move from San Diego up to Hunters Point up here, San Francisco, for an overhaul. So after the leave, I came back to the port up in Hunters Point. There'd be an overhaul, then they were going to go out on another cruise. And well, I had enough points to get discharged. Not get discharged, you had to have enough points. And I had enough points to get discharged. But they froze the rates of electricians and machinists because we were putting all the submarines in mothballs. So they held on to us to put the ships in mothballs.
Right.
So I had to stay out on the West Coast. I was trying to get transferred back to the East Coast. Couldn't swing it. So then after I think they extended for 6 months, I think. So 6 months later I got discharged. I got discharged out there and I flew back on my own.
They didn't.
And I had a seat on a non-stop flight, first class, you know. My buddy, he couldn't get a flight, but he found this here new airline. There was a lot of Army pilots. They got discharged. They started their own airlines. They buy a C-47, the old troop planes. He said, hey, it's half the price. You know? I said, oh, why don't you come with me? There's nobody going with me. I said, okay. Bad move. Well, we left. We weren't sure what time we were going to leave. It had no seats in it. It just had the seats along the side, like the paratrooper shoes. And the plane wasn't insulated. It was cold as hell. On the way back, we had to stop in Wyoming. I forget what town it was, but he landed at the airport. He had to find the airport first. He landed, and the fuel dump was shut down. I mean, he couldn't get any gas. He had to call a cab, go into town, have somebody come out, to give him gas. Oh, Cheyenne, I think it was Cheyenne. That's in Wyoming. We flew back to Newark. I look out the window, I see we're flying over Newark Airport. We kept on going. I said, I thought we were going to stop at Newark Airport. He said, yeah, as soon as we find it. I said, well, you just passed it. He said, yeah, where is it? I was just back by in 46. And Newark Airport wasn't as big as it is now. And he said, oh, yeah, I said, we had the Skyway there. I said, you see that big highway there? Where it goes down where it turns like that, that's Newark Airport. He said, oh, now I see the beacon, you know. So when he landed, it was around 2 o'clock in the morning. He had to park the plane way at the far end of the runway. He couldn't go up to the passenger terminal because he was a non-scheduled flight, you know. So my brother was out there waiting for me earlier. He asked him about our plane. He says, they have no record of our plane arriving or anything. So because when he got near Newark Airport, he called and says, this is flight so-and-so, looking for landing instructions. So I'll never do that again. I had a nice seat on a first-class airline, non-stop to Newark Airport. But they could have picked me up at a decent time and had a hot meal, whereas on this unscheduled, I had no food, no coffee. If they had warned us, I mean, I would have brought some with me. To keep warm, and I get this, we all huddled together on the deck to keep warm. I mean, it was like a bunch of puppies sitting together just to keep warm. Well, it was a cheap flight, in more ways than one.
Well, you're giving a fellow vet a hand, right?
Oh yeah,
Giving
yeah,
him
trying to help out the guy. And funny was, one of the persons was a pilot too. So one of the owners came back, would you like to fly a while? I said, sure. So the person went up and got behind the wheel. It was very informal flight, you might say.
Before the FAA got involved.
Oh yeah. Because there's a lot of pilots that done that. They buy a surplus plane, they go into a short hop, something like that. But had no flight, well, I guess they had to have a flight plan of some sort. But they get near airport, they call the airport, we have to get some gas. And that's one of the good stories. Never go anything cheap.
If you can afford it, right?
Right. That's what I was saving money. It was well worth it though. It was hard to get air seats at that time too. A lot of people traveling then, you know. And I think it was American Airlines. Because I came home on leave on American Airlines. Had nice service like that. That's one time when you got on the plane, then when you got your seat, then the stewardess would come around each seat, and who's who. Whereas now, you know beforehand.
Yeah,
You know, have
absolutely.
to pass,
Yeah.
you know, the manifest. That was when they come by, hey, what's your name? You're in seat 14, such like that. And they were pretty then too. But I was trying to date one on the way home, but I'm sorry, I'm married. She showed the ring. I think they all wore rings just for that.
Just because everybody's hitting
Yeah.
on it. So
Heck, I was still a wet nosed kid. You know, I came home, I wasn't old enough to drink yet.
you were still 20?
Yeah, you had to be 20, right? And now you have to be 21 to drink. And I got home, I was only 20.
Right.
I couldn't even vote. So, but on the way back to the coast after the war, we had a good yeoman. He made up a separate ID card for me. He changed my year on it, made me older. So when I get back to San Diego, I could go into a bar. Because they would check the IDs, they would hold a flashlight up behind it. See if they made any changes on it. But I had it when it was valid, you know. No, because I have two. I still have it upstairs someplace. And that makes me a year older.
Well, it's kind of.
It worked.
I wonder how silly they felt turning a vet away from a bar.
Yeah, I mean, you gonna find a way you can't. He's not old enough to drink.
Yeah.
No. But that's only right though. You shouldn't be able to drink because even nowadays, I mean, they're drinking what's the age? 18?
21.
21, yeah. In New York, it's 18, isn't it?
No, all the states are
And
21.
they changed it.
Right.
Well, back then, I think in New York it was 18. You know, after all, a lot of the kids used to go over to Staten Island. But on the way back, there'd be cops at the Bayonne Bridge, seeing if he was too drunk to drive. You get on the DWIs that way.
Yeah.
So we always had one guy that didn't drink.
The designated driver, right.
The DD. So that's good. I noticed nowadays, a lot of people aren't drinking as much as they did before, at least the older people. I mean, like, when we say we go to a reception or something like any party, there's always cut back on drinking. Now, maybe all the young kids, the teenagers, they probably do. I know they do. But if you get a little wisdom, I mean, you figure it's not worth it. There's too many DWIs now. But if they had that when I was younger, even when I was over 21, I would have been stopped. But they went down on that, which is smart because there's no lot of accidents because of that.
Absolutely. DWI is the least of your problems.
Yeah.
Kill somebody.
Yeah, that's it. It's the aftermath.
Huh.
Any other questions? Or?
Yeah. When you went back to school, did the GI Bill pay for your school?
Oh, yes. I mean, all my school was paid by GI Bill. And something else we had, I had what you call the 5220. The state paid you $20 for 52 weeks. If you're a veteran.
For a stipend or living stipend?
Yeah. For living, yeah. They call it the 5220 club. You got $20 for 52 weeks. So that helped out when I was going to school. I had a part-time job. Which to get my diploma, I had to go during the day. They had a special veteran school downtown Jersey City, where they had some teachers down there, had old veterans down there. All they had to do was make up the extra credits they needed to get the diploma. So I took one easy subject, history, and English, math, some math. They just made enough to get your diploma.
Did you need to do a whole year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's full time. I mean, it depends how much you had to make up. Like I was in 2.5 years of high school when I went in. Because I should have graduated from high school in 44. But 44 I was out in Midway. Getting on the boat. I was on a boat then. I used to keep in in contact with my teacher. It was I went to St. Al's High School, in contact with her. And she was mad at me for quitting school.
Did she write to you when you were?
Oh yeah, she wrote me out in service, and she would read my notes to the class, keep in touch with me. So that was good. I still would have done it all over again, done the same thing.
You would have done the
I
same.
think I would have. Because everything turned out good for me. I didn't do anything like that. I made a lot of good friends and had a good experience. Now that's something else. I mean, that's the highlight of my life. I mean, well, other people didn't have the war. Well, I still would have gone into service, war or no war, because I did want to fly. I would have gone into the Air Corps. I got a high school if I could have. I mean, I would have gone into service anyway. But I never thought of being in submarines. That was a farthest thought in my mind. That I wanted to fly, but I didn't get any further away from flying than going to submarine, right?
No, absolutely not.
Now
But
I can say I traveled in the air, on land, on the sea, and under the sea.
You have it all covered. Most
Yeah, it
people
all
don't.
covered. I mean, there's no next place is space, which I'd like to do that, but maybe I can. They last long enough.
Some Russian just paid $28 billion to do it.
Yeah,
A private
well,
tourist.
I may be the oldest living veteran. Maybe they give me a special account,
Yeah.
special rate.
John Glenn did it again.
Yeah, sure. He was in good condition on me. He had 2 legs too.
Yeah.
So, we still,
Yeah, we're on. This one I don't think is on.
you may get. Do you get any other calls from sub vets?
Yeah, I've gotten quite a few from submarine vets.
There's a lot out there. There's one fellow. His name is Carlucci. He lives in Parsippany, I think.
I've got Frank Vitale.
Yeah.
You said you knew his name.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interviewing him on the 18th. Carlucci, I haven't gotten a call from Carlucci yet.
Yeah, I'll give him a call and I'll get his number. Now, he was on a boat. They captured a Jap submarine after the war. He surrendered. And he was the boarding party on that. So that boat was the, I forget the name of the boat. But there's another member of our group up here who was on the boat with him. Not with him, but he was on that boat later on. Anyway, they came upon a Japanese boat had been on the surface, because after the war they were told to surface and surrender. So this boat went over, they put a crew on board, take it back to Tokyo Bay. And he was a quartermaster, and he was in charge of, there was an officer with him. And they took the boat back. Now there was a Japanese admiral on board. Maybe he should tell you the story. Well, you can ask him about it. The skipper came up and asked Carlucci if it was all right if the admiral committed harikari.
And
I said, if he wasn't going to go right ahead, I would give it to you. But he shouldn't have done it. He should save
get
it.
the information from
Yeah.
that guy.
Because found out later on he was a war criminal. He had one of them. So the skipper of the submarine, after the guy killed him, he brought the dagger up. He gave it to Carlucci. He still has it. It's the dagger that he committed harikari with. Now, when he was questioned about it, he says, I don't know anything about any dagger. I mean, I didn't know he was going to do that. So, he has a lot of stories to tell you. Before he got on submarines, he was on landing craft. He says, I didn't like that they're shooting at you so much. I want to go on submarines, they start shooting at you, you die.
But in a submarine, there's nowhere to go when they start.
Every day they got shooting around, you go and set on the bottom. Oh, he has a lot of stories. He's a real storyteller, this guy.
Well, when the war did end, were you prepared for them to? Did you expect resistance, or did you expect what happened, that they would honor the surrender?
If they hadn't surrendered?
Well, at the surrender on August 14th, were you surprised that they honored the other submarines and the other?
Well, they didn't know because we had torpedoes fired as we were supposed to be outside. We were in a Bungo Suite or Bungo Straits, which is the entrance to the inland sea. Now we were stationed out there to check all the Japanese ships returning. They were supposed to return to port. And we had 2 torpedoes fired at us. So it had to be a Japanese submarine. We saw them coming, so we had to evade it. But then after we found out, a lot of Japanese skippers, submarine skippers, they didn't want to surrender. They wanted to go out and do what they can and sink the ship. And scuttle it. They want to go out and kill more Americans. So we had to be on the lookout for that. So that's another story I heard. When they had to surrender on the Missouri, Tokyo Bay, around 30 miles away there was an airfield. They had some kamikaze pilots. They were going to take off. They were going to try to bomb Missouri. But the ship at the last minute, he canceled it. They were all set to go. So they could have had maybe, I don't know how many, maybe they had a squadron, kamikaze. As the last stitch, they were going to do what they could. Now, if they had taken off, it would have been a lot different. But you can't stop a kamikaze unless you shoot them down. There's too many. Like there's one tried to get us, but our air cover shot them down. As I said before, when we were doing lifeguard duty, we had an air cover. And this one plane came in now. They came in low on the water. And our air cover spotted them. Before he could get to us, he shot them down. So that's...
Yeah, we have a beer.
You still can't trust them, the Japanese. I mean, even they surrender. They were that way. They were sneaky. I mean, we see some movies where Japanese... There's a movie on the other day with Cary Grant, Operation Tokyo or something like that, where they had shut down a Japanese flight.
5 minutes over Tokyo?
No, that was the aircraft. The airstrike on Tokyo. There was a submarine that went in and sent a landing party up on the land there to get the weather forecast so they could make that raid.
Not familiar with the movie.
Yeah, well, see, they had to know what the weather would be like over Tokyo when they had the air raid. So they put on whether it's true or not, it's possible. There's a lot of things went on. It's unbelievable. I just heard about this. And they shot down a Japanese pilot, and the American crew was trying to get him out of the water. The Japanese stabbed him, killed him. I mean, you can't trust them. We had one prisoner, we had a couple. When he got up on deck, the officer stood there with the gun right at his forehead, and he made any false move. Now, they always bow down and say, hi, 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 like that. You don't know he's reaching down for a knife or what. He made a wrong move, they were blowing his head off. So he couldn't trust him. What is somebody else that just entered my mind, went in and out again. Trying to think of too many things at the same time. At one time we shelled, our boat was the first American warship to shell Japanese mainland. We went in one time and there was an oil refinery on the coast. Now other subs had done it, but after us, and there was one, the first time they fired rockets at Japan, a submarine. That was USS Bang, I think.
So what was, other than the torpedo and the deck gun, what other armament?
Oh, well, at first we had a 4-inch gun, then we had a 5-inch deck gun. Then we had a 120 millimeter and a twin 40 millimeter. At first we had a twin 20 on the after cigarette deck and a single 20 on the forward cigarette deck. And we kept the forward 20, then we had a twin 40 millimeter. So we had the 5-inch 25, a twin 40 millimeter, and a 20 millimeter. We also had 50 caliber machine guns could post up on the bridge. But in the early part of the war they were using it, but after the war they didn't use them because we were losing too many men, which are out in the open. But that's another reason why we used to shoot the troops in the water. I told you, I think, that the troop ship, they'd be out in lifeboats. We had maybe around 30 troops in there, maybe 20. They all had their rifles. And so they had the machine gun mounted on the bow, so when to pick them up, they'd start shooting at you. So we just had to shoot them. And after that, shot every soldier we saw in the water. We usually Jap Marines. Well, that was only the one ship we sank, the troop ship. Now, we sank the destroyer. We didn't pick up any survivors. We had any room for them to begin with. But we didn't machine gun them because they were sails too. And you have to make you have to decide which is which, you know. And if you figure any Jap is wounded, because they're wounded, they spend time in a hospital, but they get out, they may shoot your brother. If you had brother in the army, you never know. So that's why I always said, kill more Japs. So I wouldn't want to be eliminated them all at the time with my frame of mind. I mean, it's hard to explain. It'd be hard for somebody like yourself to understand that. Because at the time we were fighting for our lives. And if what they had done, I mean, you just show no mercy. War, I mean, the old saying, war is hell. It is, I mean, and you go to war, you're out to kill them before they kill you. The more you kill them, the better for you. So nowadays, it's altogether different. I'll tell you one thing with this war in Iraq and everything. I think it's right or wrong. I mean, that guy had to be taken out, for one thing. But I think this is, Bush is using the troops as his own little goon squad. I still think he's in cahoots with big business, multinational companies. But this is all because of oil. I mean, they may whitewash it, but get right down to it. It's because of oil and the oil fields over there. Now, I've been doing a lot of reading and go back. Hey, you learn a lot from the History Channel. They come out with things you never knew about. You get into, and with some books I've read, written by people who were there. I mean, they're not something that they heard about, that writing about, they experienced. Every war we had since the Spanish-American War was all because of economics. Same thing with the First World War. I mean, actually, it was because of the shooting of the Archduke, but there's things behind that. And then the Spanish-American War. America was the only country, major country in the world, didn't have any colonies. The French had them out in French Indochina, the British had India, the Germans had them over there, Dutch had them, and we were the only ones that didn't have any colonies. After the Spanish-American War, we had the Philippines, we had Guam, we had Cuba, we had Puerto Rico, and that gets right down to economics. And somebody you'll never see in history, they may glance over it. Down in one of the Banana republics, not Ecuador, maybe it was Ecuador, where it was a country that was owned by United Fruit Company, you know, Annual Bananas. They had all the plantations, they owned them there. Now they had the election down there, they had a president elected, duly elected, supervised by America. But then what he was doing, he was nationalizing all the plantations. He was taking it away from United Fruit, giving it to the people who worked at plantations. United Fruit didn't like that. They went to Washington, and covert action, they had this guy assassinated. What's main reason for that was for United Fruit, money. And that's what the whole thing is, all the wars, all the economics. Now with Japan, I mean, we Well, they were invading China and all that, so we stopped the oil to them, which forced them against the war. So they had to do something. But the way it turned out, boomerang. Another thing that burns me up is so Pearl Harbor, never in naval history did they ever have all the capital ships in port at the same time. It's a rule of thumb.